You're close to me. You're close to me, giving me support.
This is Fatu.
Sandra Fernandez. From Colombia.
Colombia.
That's good.
Well, I didn't have to say a word. All of you started to quiet down on your own. You sensed our next happening here. Thank you for coming to the 10 o'clock panel of Who is an American, the immigration debate post 9/11. The first panel, you heard the scholars and the experts provide that kind of a context for the debate that we're having today and all the ways that we're exploring this. Now it's important to listen to the people who actually have the experience of coming to these shores and who want to make a new life in America. What are their trials? What are the glories of their success? What can we learn from them? So at this point, I would like to introduce the moderator for our second panel, Steve Buckridge, and there he is. Steve is Jamaican by birth. He came to this country 15 years ago. He's been a professor at Grand Valley State University for 9 years. He teaches in the history department, where he's a professor. And I turn the floor over now to Steve, and thank you all for coming and agreeing to be on this panel. Steve, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to this panel. My name is Steve Buckridge, as you just heard, and I'm a Jamaican American. As an immigrant and Jamaican American living in this country, like so many others, I'm constantly asking myself the question, what does it mean to be an American? What defines an American? Is an American defined by skin color, race, or ethnicity? Or is an American, or does one become an American when one gives up his or her indigenous language, when we all speak English? Or what does it mean to be an American? Does it also mean that to be an American is when one is patriotic, when one has a particular political affiliation, or when one has devotion to the flag? How does one become a member of a society that is still not accepting of all people because, perhaps, of that person's race or ethnicity, religion or gender identity or sexual orientation? This panel is not here this morning to answer these questions, but to share with you our stories, our voices, and to have a dialogue about the immigrant experience. I also thought I'd share with you some quotations by a few famous people about this notion of who is an immigrant. And I quote, "The making of an American begins at the point where he himself rejects all other ties, any other history, and himself adopts the vesture of his adopted land." James Baldwin, American author. Quote, "Every immigrant who comes here should be required within 5 years to learn English or leave the country." Theodore Roosevelt, 26th President of the US. "The great social adventure of America is no longer the conquest of the wilderness, but the absorption of 50 different peoples." Walter Lippmann, American journalist. Today we're honored to have with us 5 distinguished members from the community and also from Grand Rapids community and also GVSU. And I'd like to introduce the members of our panel. Beginning with my immediate left, we have Sandra Fernandez. And Sandra Fernandez is a Colombian immigrant who has resided here in the US since 1999 and is currently working towards her citizenship. She's an assistant director in the Office of Multicultural Affairs here at GVSU. Next to Sandra, we have Fatou Cissé, a West African immigrant who served as a member of the Gambian Parliament and also as cultural ambassador, and is an officer of the US Embassy. Was granted political asylum in 1998. She has been on the path towards citizenship ever since. Seated next to her is Douglas Chung, a Chinese immigrant. Has been a US citizen for 15 years. He he's one of the founders, and he also directs the Asian Center of Grand Rapids, and is a professor here at GVSU in the social work department. And seated next to him is Laura Armenta, an immigrant from Mexico City, is a professional dancer and a dance instructor. She has lived in the US for 11 years and is seeking citizenship. And seated next to her is Janine Itani, a Lebanese immigrant who works in adult foster care. She's resided in the US for 16 years and gained her citizenship in 2003. Can we please have a round of welcome for the panelists? I'd like to start off by asking each of the panelists to share with us, maybe in about just a few minutes, 5 minutes, to share with us what brought you to the US, and if you could tell us what was the application process like to become an American citizen, or just to get to come here. And I don't know, Sandra, if we could start with you.
Well, what brought me to the United States was the fact that I studied modern languages in my country, and of course I wanted to learn more English and to have the opportunity to practice the language and to know the culture too. So I have the opportunity at home to apply for a scholarship, and I got one. And I came the first year to teach Spanish in a small college, and also to live the experience of living in the United States. So that was the goal. And of course, well, it was one of my dreams to come to the US because, well, we always have these images on TV, and of course, because I wanted, because of learning the language, learning English. Then I applied to the visa, so I got first a visa only for 1 year, that the name of the visa is a student, no, visitor visa, so it's only for 1 year, and then you have to come back. So what I did, I applied for a waiver in order to not come back. That means that you can get an attorney, and they decide if the government of your country don't need you in a way, doesn't need you in a way. And it's especially when people who are not connected to science, for example, or to engineering, to research in a specific sickness, they are more demanding for the countries than somebody that, like me, that was just teaching Spanish. I mean, if I don't come back to my country, they are not going to miss me in a way, because they don't need me in a way as they need somebody that is doing a research in cancer or a doctor. So it was not complicated, although it's always a suffering process to go to the embassy, to have all the papers in rules, everybody asking you questions, what are your destination, where you're gonna come back or not. So it's always complicated. But I stayed more time, then I applied to Michigan State, and I studied, and then I got married, and now I am expecting an American baby. So I stay.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Sisse?
Okay. My own story is a little bit different from my Colombian sister or my American sister now. Okay. I come from West Africa, Gambia, a tiny state in Africa called Gambia. And before I came, actually, I used to come to the United States on missions by my government, because I was then a member of parliament. And I would come to missions for my country, to conferences. Okay, as the years went by, our country, which was a democratically elected government, had been in power for almost 30 years. Okay, incidentally, that party was founded by my father, okay? And in my country during that time, it was unheard of to get women to go to school. But my father, because of his position, I mean, I think he encroached on that privilege to send me to school, and that was a big issue. You know, there was a lot of hue and cry, and had he not been the son of the king there, he would have been exiled. He would have been got out of the country for breaking the traditions. So I stayed in school, and with the help of my father, I went through my education. Before I finished my education, many a time I had been called to get married. And my father said, now look here, if you want to get married, you can. But if you want to be educated, you want to go to school, please do, because that would be the trend in your generation. You would really thank me for educating you or giving you the chance to go to school. I said, Dad, I want to. So that was it. I went to school. And despite whatever they said and how many Kulanots came to our house to seek my hand in marriage, no, I just refused because I knew my father was there helping me. And I remember my grandma telling me, Fatu, when is the time you're going to get married? I want to see your baby, or do you want to wash all your babies away in the backyard? I said, Grandma, I said, come on, I want to go. Women are not supposed to go to school that much. How much do you want to learn? I said, Grandma, well, they want to try on me. I'm going to do something about it. I said, why don't you watch me? And that was it. So when I finished school, I decided to become a teacher and to give back, you know, to get other women, because that was a campaign I was prepared to take with my father. I mean, to get girls, women, to go to school. And we finally did it. I became a teacher, and I taught in the rural areas. It was hard, it was difficult, but we finally walked through it, and we had it. And because of that, the work I did in trying to change that cultural look, I later became nominated by the president of the country to represent women in parliament, okay? And in fact, before I got nominated, I was the youngest JP ever, because at the age 22, I was nominated as a local magistrate taking care of family and women's cases in the lower courts, So, I mean, it was a kind of thing, being the first woman to be educated and exposed that way, because my education took me all the way to England, where I did my teachers in Oxford, okay, came back again, and that was it. So being the sole woman at that time, you know, I had a lot of doors open to me, okay? And it was hard, but I loved it, and I took it. I took the challenge. And when I was in politics, I just became so much, I had a passion, you know, to do a lot of changes for women, changing marriage, reform marriage rules and regulations, to stop female circumcision, and a lot of other things that were the development for women. And I had to represent my country at various conferences in the world, you know. But later on, after 3 years in Parliament, okay, I was also a member of the Confederal Parliament between Senegal and the Gambia. That's the neighboring countries, a French-speaking country. However, I mean, I was there for 5 years. Later, as I saw with the training I had with the American Embassy as their communications office, I saw that the trend wasn't going as I supposed, and I soon picked up that there was going to be an unrest. So I retired on marriage grounds and concentrated working for the American Embassy, embassy as their cultural officer, cultural communications officer. So it was then that we had this military coup d'etat. Okay, it was difficult. It was just horrendous. And my family was hard hit because at that time, we were in every political movement, and I was an activist, I was everything there. And unluckily for me, my husband, my son, had just come in from Australia. You know, he had his business. But because of the coup d'etat, they came to him and asked him to take a position in the new government as their finance officer, because they said he had just come in, he was a clean young man, and everybody liked him. I said, no, don't take this position. I said, the history of coup d'etats in Africa has been such that intellectuals are highly sought, and they would kill them. I said, and that would be no difference to you. So what you have to do, graciously refuse the offer. And he did. But in our tradition, what is done is, if they come to you with a favor like that, or a request like that, and you turn it down, and they really know that you are good for the position, they would persist. And it was that. Through constant persistence for 17 days, in our custom, we have to give in, because we say, half of you is you, belongs to you, but the other half of you belongs to your people. So if your people come after you to ask you for a favor, after being reluctant a while, you can give in. So that was what happened. He said, Ma, I think I'll have to take this. It's part of national development, I'll just go in. I said, don't you do it. I said, if you did, I said, they'll kill you. He said, well, you know one thing? He said, I'll do it, even if it means that I'm going to be killed, but I'll take the sacrifice. I cried because I knew what was coming. Because it's the history. We've seen it over and over again in the sub-region. And after 2 months, he completely changed the new government, and people liked it. Even people who didn't like the government came in. And after a while, I think there was some jealousy component in it. And they thought, since they had said, the military had said that they would change into civilian rule, they'll hand over to civilian rule after 2 years. But seeing the way things were going with my son, I think it must have gone into their heads that this was a man that people were going to take. So they decided to assassinate him. So a day when the president was going to the African Unity meetings, he saw him at the airport, and then he called me and said, Ma, I'm coming back again after seeing the president but I have my budget, my national budget that I'm coming to share with you. Ma, when you hear this, you will not rate it as the best, but it will be one of the best the Gambia ever had. And then in my tradition, I sang him, and I sang after his ancestors. I said, I knew you would do this. I said, I'm so proud of you. He said, so wait for me, tell my sisters to get me some mangoes, I'll be back soon. And we sat from 9 o'clock that night, 9 p.m., until 1 o'clock, and he never came back. And it was raining cats and dogs. And his father said, why don't we go to bed? If he comes, he'll call us. I said, no, you go, I'll wait for him. Everybody went to bed, save me. I sat down till 3 o'clock, he never came. I went home. I went to my room, called his house. The phone, it rang, and nobody picked it up. So I went to bed, but very restless. And early hours of the morning, I went to his house, not very far from mine. And the security man said, Ma, this is the first time Usman is in town, and he didn't come back to the house. I said, what are you saying? He said, since he left last evening to see the president off, he never came back again. And then I froze where I stood. I said, what? He said, yes. I went into his house, everything was intact. And then I went back home. And as soon as I got to my house, my sister called me, said, did you hear the news? I said, what? He said, they found Usman's car abandoned from the airport. And like 20 yards away, they saw a charred body and a burnt-up car. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, but we are not saying it's Usman. It could be his driver. I said, no, that's not his driver. He went alone yesterday. And that was it. But half of me is saying, no, it's not Usman. Probably he must have left with the president. I said, no, he cannot do that. He could call, even at the airport, to say, Ma, I'm leaving. I said, but he never did that. And that was it. The next few minutes were just very dark with me, very unsteady. And before I knew what, then I saw people coming to the house. And what they did was, they came to tell me my son was killed, okay? And the next minute, there was a lot of soldiers coming in to tell me that they have found his body. I passed out. And the next minute, when I came to again, a soldier was standing right in front of me. But I later got to know that that was one of my students that I taught in school. He said, Ma, can you leave the house right now? I've been asked to come and take you, but I can't take you. You've been my best teacher in school. You know what? Leave this house within 10 minutes. It's going to be bombed. So I just rushed out of the house. I didn't see my kids, but I went to the American embassy, and they got me out of the country immediately, And the next thing I knew, I was in Dhaka and straight to the United States. Emergency visas were sought for me and everything that I had to come, okay? And I had to stay in this country almost 2 years before my kids started staggering after me. I lost my children, my husband, didn't see them. My home was bombed, and it was just like that. It was such a horrible experience. But coming here to the United States really humbled me, because I had acted as host and mothers for a lot of refugees in my sub-region. And I never knew what it meant to be an asylee or a refugee until I came here. In my culture, when you see strangers, wherever they may come from, you have open arms for them, knowing that they are people from their own homes, have lived their own lives the way they want to. But for reasons like ours, coming the way we did, it's hard. Like my father said, when you are blessed in a kingly robe, you must appreciate your maker and creator. In the same vein, if he puts on a beggar's robe over your head, you must still appreciate him and thank him. And those are very true words. I think I can stop here until the next speaker, and I can gather myself. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Fatou, for moving. Thank you.
It's my great honor to be here with you, sharing my personal story. Probably you would love to hear the personal story from your professor. I came to the United States twice. First time I came to the United States because I was a United Nations fellow. I came from Taiwan. First time I came to the United States in 1971 as a United Nations fellow under a UNDP program, United Nations Development Program. In Taiwan, was elected as a national fellow for the community development in research and training. Under that UNDP program, I was sent to the United Nations in New York, then through the United Nations, sent to the West Virginia School of Social Work there for a specialization in rural social work training. I was promised to be a 2-year fellowship, but as soon as we arrived in United Nations, we were told that we only get a 1-year fellowship. Because Taiwan was out of the United Nations, the people of the Republic of China stepped into the United Nations. Therefore, they check every penny, would not allow any penny flow into the Taiwanese pocket. So we got our whole fathers get the whole 1 year. I recall in 1971, 10,000 US dollars, big amount. Immediately we got the 14,000 or something like that. Well, we are so happy because we get a big amount of money. But the worry is what we're going to do for the second year. We were promised for 2 years. Anyway, later on, the IIE, American government, picked up that, and we will be able to finish that. So first time I come to United States, I finished my MSW degree, master's degree in social work. Went back to Taiwan because the UNDP program was ended. So we are free, and then I went to the Fudan University, taught there for about 5 years. Come to the third year, 4th year, I found that whatever I learned from United States either doesn't work. The theory doesn't work in Taiwan, or many of them, you know. I thought at that time I blamed myself, probably because I did not learn well. So I better went back to United States for my PhD program. And I didn't realize that the American theory actually do not culturally sensitive to the Taiwan situation. Anyway, I didn't know that at that time. So I come back to the United States after 5 years teaching and practice in Taiwan. Back to the Ohio State for my PhD program there. Before I graduate, my dissertation committee, one of the committee members was out of the state or out of the country. So I finished my dissertation, but I couldn't defend it. So I had to stay for 1 more semester until the committee member come back. So since I had to stay for 1 more semester, means I will be delayed back to Taiwan for teaching, probably for 1 year. So I was thinking about why not looking for a teaching job, have an American teaching experience. That would be good for me to go back to Taiwan. So I looking for that, and at that time, Indiana, just the next day, happened to have a looking for the professor. So I went and applied. Well, they treat me well. They hire me right away. So I thought that's a good idea. So I stayed and moved to Indiana and finished my dissertation. Well, they treat me right. They promised to apply for the green card for me, so I stayed. And later on, I relocated to the GBSU and then applied for the American citizenship. I think that's what I need to say about the procedure to the, and then if you're interested in my red tape story, then I'll tell and share with you later on.
Thank you. Laura?
Hello. Hi, good morning. Let's see, I'm Mexican. I'm from Mexico City. I've been a dancer, professional dancer, modern dance and ballet dancer for 21 years. And although Mexico City is a large city where you can find everything you could think of, at the same time, there is still the limitation that any artist, and especially a female artist, would have to really work hard to make a living with your artistic field and develop it. So at a very early age, I really thought of just going around the world and do my dancing. I never really planned specifically to come to the US to stay, kind of it just happened. But coming back and forth to like Washington, DC and New York City, where I was getting my training, eventually opportunities started to grow, and that's how I traded from my tourist visa into my student visa to stay in more permanent basis in New York, where at the time I was training at Alvin Ailey School. And it was a very interesting experience to realize that on just that one spot, I found the whole world that I was searching for. In one spot I learned, or actually I met a lot of people from everywhere, so it was kind of like I had everything all in one. So from there, just developed my dancing, and eventually I moved to Detroit area, which was interesting transformation. But from there, I decided to pursue my teaching career as I kind of gave up the performing area. I was switching from performing and being on stage to now instruct. So from there, just apply from my student visa into my residency, and I've been a resident of the U.S. for 7 years. I'm in the process of getting my citizenship at the time, but it kind of takes a while, a lot longer than what I thought it would be. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for everybody to listen for me and excuse my accent. I'm originally from Lebanon. I born in Lebanon, I get my study in Lebanon, and in 1997 I get married and go to Saudi Arabia to live with my husband as normal husband and wife. I live in Saudi Arabia for 11 years. Between those 11 years, I get my 3 kids. The first one, he's born in Saudi Arabia. The second one, she's born in Germany. And the third one is supposed to be born here in United States, but it doesn't happen. And those time, I've been go back and forth to United States as a vacation. As a vacation, you love it because it's different people, different culture. It's fun. In 1990, we have a friend from here. He's a lawyer, and he invited us to come to United States. And when we come to United States, when it's serious, I need to live here, I cannot used to it. It's totally different for me with everything. I decided to go back to my country. But I keep thinking, if I need to go back to my country, it was war at that time. I cannot go back with 3 children. And my visa over here, it's supposed to be done with 6 months, what I can do. At that time, we decided to go to Canada to live over there for 1 year between my husband. He tried to fix all those papers because we need to sit down here as legally. And he can, and he got like permanent green card and permanent, what it called, permanent work. From 1990 till 96, we try hard to get our paperwork as a green card, but it took too long procedures to get those. But finally, in the end, we can get it in 1996. In 1996, at that time, I can work. I can do everything I need. Since 1990 till 96, I'm start to just learn as English, because when I came here, I have a single word of English. I try to learn my English and to get basic job, to get my job. In 1997, I work as AFC, or adult foster care for adult people mentally ill. And in December 14, 2001, finally I get my citizenship. I'm, as everybody here, like, this is my citizen, and I'm proud with this one now. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine, and thanks to all the panelists. Just to share my story with you, I first came to the US when I was about 8.5 years old, and my family would go and come. My father used to bring me to the US as a child, but then we officially migrated to this country about 15 years ago. For me, growing up in Jamaica, like so many of my peers at the time, we had this image that America was all perfect and wonderful, that America's streets were paved with gold. At least that was the the image that was fed to us in movies, in films that we saw, in what we read and in what we heard. And so there are so many of us that wanted to come here. And so as a child, I also had that dream. I wanted to come to America, to really see if America is all perfect and wonderful as it seems in the movies. And I remember my first trip, as I said, I was about 8.5 years old. My father brought me to Miami. My older brother was living in Miami at the time, Miami, Florida. And I was so excited, my first time in the US, and I was going to see this perfect country where everything is wonderful and everybody's doing so well. And I remember we were driving from the airport, from Miami International on the way home, and as we drove through downtown Miami, I saw something that really struck me, that made me stop and think twice, and that was a naked, homeless man walking under an underpass downtown Miami. And I never forgot that image. And I remember when I returned to Jamaica and I went back to school, I remember telling my school friends, I said, look, I saw a naked man in Miami. And people said, no, that's impossible. There are no naked people in the US. Everything is perfect in the US. And I said, but yes, I saw a naked man in Miami. No, I was 8.5 years old, and I didn't quite understand what was going on. But a couple of weeks later, I remember saying to my father, I said, Dad, why is it that so many people want to go to America? If there are naked people walking around there, what's the big deal? And he said, son, you'll find out sooner or later. In the 1980s, late 70s to 1980s, Jamaica went through a series of political turmoil. It was a very, very tumultuous period in the country. And so my family decided to migrate to the US for political reasons. One of our family members was murdered because of political affiliations, and so we thought that the best thing to do was to leave the country. When we came to the US, we moved to Miami. We lived in Miami for several years, and then eventually my siblings and myself, we pursued our own paths and we moved off to other places. For me personally, living in the US has been wonderful. It's been wonderful in that I think that I've accomplished a lot. I think I've done well. And I think many people have said that to me, and that perhaps if I was living in my country, perhaps there's certain things I would not have accomplished. And that is certainly true, and I'm deeply grateful for that, being here. But on the other hand, there are also some things that have troubled me, and there are moments when I've had to stop and think twice as well about being in this country, and what does it mean to be an immigrant, and what does it mean to be an American? The questions of race. I've had to deal with racism. When I lived in Miami in the 80s, Miami was quite tense. Some of you remember the race riots in Miami. That was a very, very troubling time for me in terms of figuring out if my family, in fact, made the right decision to come here. But I stuck it out, I stayed. There was also the challenge of learning the system, learning how to cope with a new educational system. In Jamaica, we were brought up under the British system. The American system is very different. And learning how to navigate my way through that was a challenge. But again, I did get through the system, and I think I did fairly well. So that's basically my story and how I got here. And so what I'd like to do now is to pose a few more questions to the panel, and then I will open the floor for discussions and for questions from the audience. So one question I'd like to ask is, and I open this for any of our panelists who would like to answer. After you arrived here in the US, did you feel accepted? And those of you who have been here for several years now, do you feel as if you have fully integrated into American society? I don't know who would like to take that one. Laura?
I personally didn't, and it was a very interesting dynamic to realize that as I was at the airport in Texas, somewhere in Texas, a lot of the immigration officers, all of them were Hispanic or for some Hispanic heritage. And it was as if they were trying to prove that because they were already in, I kind of had to work hard to be in it. And it was like my second time coming here already with my green card, which I thought it would be like opening the magic door. And right there, that was my welcoming of just because I guess I was Mexican, everybody in the line before me were just normal American people, and everybody behind me the same. So I was the only one that got stopped, and this was way before 9/11. So that was kind of scary. They put me on hold in one room and just asking me all these questions of like, just because I was coming from Mexico, maybe I was hiding something. They searched everywhere in my luggage, and anyway, it was an unpleasant experience. But after that, going to New York, actually the Lebanese community has always been amazingly nice to me. I realized that a lot of the Hispanic people here have to work so hard to be accepted that eventually they have this barrier to welcome their own people. Kind of like you have to prove that you are worth it to be here. So it's kind of sad personally, just because being Mexican and coming from a culture where everybody welcomes you and is friendly, suddenly you see somebody in the street that looks just like you, and they are not as nice as I'm used to in Mexico, or they don't even say good morning to you. So that was an interesting challenge to realize that once you're here, somehow like nobody really belongs to the land, and at the same time we're all mixed in this salad. Now that I live in Grand Rapids, I've been here for a few years now, and now I think that I'm kind of getting in a place where I could be respected as an individual versus pointed as being different. But I have faced a lot of challenges professionally in some ways because being a woman or because I'm Mexican. I try hard to speak the language the best possible, because a lot of people point at you just because you have an accent, think that you might not be as smart. And I think that that would be actually the opposite. So I have a lot of European friends that speak more than 4 languages, and it's a normal thing. And I think opening to new faces, to new cultures, the challenge as a community would be to understand that even if we have an accent or we come from different places or we look different, we still have the same heart, the same blood. We are all humans and we're on the same planet. So it's a constant challenge, I think.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Anyone else on the panel? I mean, would like to take on that question. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, do you feel integrated in the society now that you've been here for a while, culturally, socially, politically, or do you still feel as an outsider living here? Yes, please.
Do I feel fully integrated in this society? Yes, I do. And I feel that I am fully American. That's for sure. But I also see collectively my people or a different group of people is not well accepted. It's not well integrated. Do you see my point? Individually, I am and I was well accepted because I know how to play the game, or I know how to do the adjustment. Example, during the daytime, I operate in the Caucasian value system. Dress up, tie up, talking in a white way. In the evening, I eat the rice operate in the Asian value system. Some people call that marginal personality or two-sided, whatever you call it. So you have to kind of adjust between the two worlds, daytime, evening, weekday, weekend. When you fly out, coming back to the United States, you have to know where is the green line. I want to point out a universal reality. The prejudice and discrimination is a worldwide phenomenon. I personally fully enjoy American political freedom. Matter of fact, that's one of the major reasons that I decided to in the United States and become an American citizen. I came from Taiwan. We went through the process of so-called 178 versus 1. What that means is, in a governmental employee in Taiwan in 1970-60, 178 national Chinese versus only 1 Taiwanese. That's a fact in Taiwan in 1960 and in the 70s. In Japan, we have a family friend. One of our Korean friends went to Japan attending the graduate study. When she graduated, one of our relatives in Japan, it's a close friend, and now she went to the graduate school. She graduated, he graduated. But in the graduate bulletin, he cannot find his name. And he's looking for, how come my friend's name is not appear? Reason, yeah, he did graduate, but under the Japanese name. Foreigner in Japan are not allowed to buy the property, except you are married with a Japanese. It's a reality. I pointed out, on the one hand, I want to appreciate the Americans have a very positive environment, tolerance. I never had the idea to criticize my president. But here in the United States, I can say that publicly, in writing. In Taiwan, if I say against my president in that time, in 70 and 60, maybe overnight I will be disappeared. Last summer, I took one of my boys went to China for vacation. I went for conference first, then I invited my son to join me. So we have about more than 10 days together on a group trip. In the middle of the trip, he told me, and I was so moved. He said, "Daddy, I thank you. You make a wise decision to have an immigration to the United States." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Oh, I look at this, the third world country, that's quite different. And if you do not immigrant to the United States, I probably will be similar to many of the phenomena that I saw." Tourist guy was communicate with the security guy, and we noticed that, and then the tourist guy explained to us, and nothing to do with that. And my boy sensed out that being under a certain oppressive environment. As soon as he stepped and we stepped into the Northwest Airline, then he make a comment and say, "I feel so good back to the United States now." I think I'll stop here, and maybe you want to hear some more red tape I'll keep talking about that. But I want you to have a positive mentality.
But let's hold on a little bit and then we'll come back to you. Who else would like to address that question? Do you feel, Sandra, do you feel as if you're a part of American society?
Okay. I am in the process right now. I have a residence. I have a temporary resident because of the fact that I got married to an American. So they always want to make sure that you didn't get married just because of the papers. So because of that, you have always a temporary residence. And next year, I have to go back to Detroit with my husband and show that we have been together more than 2 years. Now we are expecting a baby now. So that is something that is really serious, that is not because of the papers. And well, about if I feel influenced, I feel completely involved with the culture, I would say a little bit. I still feel an outsider for many things. I still feel that there is discrimination sometimes if you go to a place and just going to a mall and you are walking around, and if you stay more than 30 minutes, there is always somebody that look at you, okay, what do you need? Are you gonna buy something or not? So sometimes I feel that look. Also, well, when people hear the accent, some of them, I know I'm gonna have the accent always, so it's gonna be something that I have to deal with that. And well, I have it, so what? I am from other country. I'm not gonna speak English perfect. And so sometimes there are people who have a struggle with that and make you feel bad. But at the same time, I say, well, that's the way I talk. Yeah, that's not my language. I speak Spanish. English is a foreign language, so it's gonna be difficult for me anyway to talk. But the fact is that I am able to communicate, even if I feel the accent, and I feel it all the time. So what's the deal? So sometimes I feel that I had been also Americanized in many ways because, well, I had been here 7 years, so you get used to everything. I have also enjoyed many things from the culture. The first time that I saw the snow for me was wonderful. It was one morning I was in a college teaching Spanish, and I opened the blinds and I saw everything white, and it was really a spiritual experience to see the snow the first time. Then, well, I don't like cold too much, then I complain all the time. I like to see it in the window inside, but not outside. When it's winter, and I'm not gonna do it here in Michigan. Maybe it was the destiny to meet my husband here, but it's difficult. So when I go back to my country, many people said to me, my family, that I have become gringas, we say in Spanish, to Americans, in many ways, in the way I think, or they said, you are thinking like an American now. And it's something that I don't think so, but that people realize and made me think, yeah, you are right now seeing the world in other way. And of course, because, well, you have been in other culture, you get mature, you get more experience, and you also compare with your country. So here I have what I have, and I am also having my roots right now here. But I still feel very proud of being Colombian, even if we have that stereotype that everybody sells dogs and I am like the son of Pablo Escobar or something like that. That's not truth. So even with that stereotype, bad stereotype that we have, I still feel proud of that, and I always share my culture with the people around me, and with my students. I also teach Spanish in Grand Valley. So I always try to make them think that Colombia is more than that. Yeah, it's not only drugs, it's also a beautiful country. And well, I still have Colombia in my heart, and I will always have it.
Thanks, Sandra. And Fatou, would you like to share a little bit fast about, do you feel as if you're a member of American society, do you still feel as if you are an outsider?
Well, to some degree, I always feel that I'm not totally accepted. okay, for the reason that first, well, when I came, I got the wide open acceptance or welcoming attitude because some of my friends that knew me in the Foreign Service actually were very quick because they have seen me at home and they have been my guests in my home. And coming the way I did to the United States, they were hasty in returning that kind of gesture, that welcome attitude and favor to me, okay? But as I groped around and tried to settle in, it was kind of hard, coming from the culture that I do, where, you know, people are always accepted, strangers are always accepted with open hands, with warmth, you know. I didn't find that here. I found that people were very reserved and people were very closed and very suspicious of one another. And to tell you the truth, even my next door neighbor, it was like about 6-8 months before I even talked to that person. And I was saying, man, what kind of people are these? You know, you can't even say hi, or even if you want to say hi, quickly. Instead of smiling like the broad smile that I'm used to, they just make faces at you. I said, what? You know, I can't understand that. I said, we're supposed to be friends and neighbors. Back home, the doors are open. You walk into your neighbor's house. Kids run in and out. People come in and out. You know, I can walk to my neighbor's house and say, what have you got today for lunch? You know, they can come to do the same thing. But here, the doors are slammed right after them. That was one crash thing in my face. And two, okay, opportunities for work. Okay, I have been a trained and qualified teacher back in my country, and I have like about 20 years more of classroom teaching experience, okay? And the way we are trained in Africa, you are trained right across. You know, you become a specialist in infant teaching, in elementary, middle school, and high school, because you go anywhere the government wants to send you. So you are trained rigorously that way, you know. I have had experiences in teaching all these different sectors in the school system before I went into politics and other careers. When I came here, the first thing I was told was, we aren't going to recognize this. You got to go back to school. I had here 5 daughters, teenagers, who were going to school. There was all this facility, which I appreciate, and I'm very happy about that because the sky was the limit. They all did excellent. Okay, they came as young teenagers and went into the high school system, then went to universities, and all 6 of them graduated through Michigan State, Eastern, Oakland, and New York States. All of them got their degrees up to their masters. And I'm so proud and happy, you know, that they did it, but it wasn't easy. Them coming into this country, from our culture, it was a constant fight with them, you know, because of the independence, the freedom, whatever it was, as opposed to the contained type of personality that you have. You know, I was in constant friction with them. I said, don't you forget, okay, we're here. We may go back home. I don't know. Whenever the country is stable enough for us to go, we sure are going. So, but please let us take what we have to take from here, the best ones of it, and please be very respectful to your elders, because when I saw them talk to some of the teachers, they would call them by their first name. Back home, you dare not call the teachers by their first names. You know, it's a ma'am or a sir that you would talk, please, and all these things. Because English is our national language, then, I mean, we do very well speaking English there, because that's the national language. So there was no difficulty in trying to learn that, because we've already been proficient at it, you know. So, but the cultural differences was really astounding. It was really great, you know. watching the movies and seeing all these things that we see, I mean, which we don't really go into. So up to now, we do flip. I make them see certain movies, and they understand it now that they've been to universities, and well, they know, and they can actually moderate themselves into the American society. But finding a job is really difficult. I did have some job experiences in the public schools, but after 5 years, I lost that because of government cutbacks. But ever since, it's been difficult to even get another kind of job. So what I do, I mean, I do lectures, you know, go to groups, schools, universities, you know, church groups. I mean, and I lecture them about Africa. And it's very pleasant to see, or very surprising to see, that a lot of Americans don't know much about Africa, you know. So then I would discuss, and I would tell them about our cultural differences, about our educational system, our politics, you know, all of these things, which is very interesting. But there is, like the good gentleman says here, I mean, in every country you go to, there are some what you call the I have lost it again. there are some discriminations, you know, I mean, which is very true. And I must say, I have come across them too, even in different places, offices and some places, but I have been a traveler. You know, I have traveled most of my life, and traveling in itself, it's an education. You know, you meet a lot of people, go to different countries, it's eye-opening, and the rubbing and interactions you have with people teach you, I mean, how you deal with people and how you talk to them. So to me, I am beginning to accept it. Like our moderator has said, we had lofty ideas and lofty dreams about the United States, but I have been here, and I have seen this country. I have been to Europe. I have been mostly a lot of places around the world, and I have seen, and I have met up with a lot of discriminations, but I was able to handle them right, you know, because I always talk to them. In my racial healing talks, I would tell them the reason why we are so different is by the Creator's design. You know, He could have said, I'd make everybody white, you know, or I'll make everybody black, or I'd make everybody yellow, okay? But He did not, you know, and He made us into different peoples, okay, with different tongues, to talk and praise Him because it was His design. We are a tapestry of human handiwork by the Creator, and we should respect that, you know, whoever we be, you know, black, white, whatever color, we are God's creation, and we must respect that, you know. And we all come from different places where, you know, we call home, where we live and are respected and are loved by our people. And some of us come to other countries because it has not been our choice. For some reason, we come here, fleeing from the persecutions or whatever, the uncertainties of life, or coming for a good life, whatever it may be. But if we do come, you know, as people, we expect, because everybody is a traveler. Every human being is a traveler on this earth. And if we see what United States is made of, it's a nation of immigrants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Janine, would you like to respond to the question? And then
For
we'll
me-
open the floor to questions after your comments.
Sorry?
But when you finish, then we'll open the floor to questions.
Okay. For me, it's more easy because it's totally different between person and person. Depends. Some American people, they have a knowledge. They does know what's that mean different between person from this country to other country. It's more easy for me, everybody except me. Except when 9/11 coming up, as we are Arab Muslim, it's hard for us because too many people, they jump over the house and they said, what you are still doing over here, and too many, something is not good. And at that time, we decided, a little bit, don't go out to community more often because we need to respect the American people, because they hard feeling about what happened with the country. And we hide for a while in the house for, it's hard when you go out to the street as Arab American Muslims, especially with a scarf and everything. It's hard, nobody accepts us. And when you go to traveling, they treat us like, terrorists. Just I need to let everybody know, who did this one? He did it, but not me, not my children, not my husband, not everyone here has the name Muhammad or Ahmed. He does know that. No, we need to survive like everybody else, and we love this country. That's it.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the whole notion of terrorists, because one of the questions I was going to pose was how did 9/11, or how has 9/11 impacted our experiences in this country, and do you think there is a backlash against immigrants right now? But let me open the floor for questions and comments. We have about 15 minutes. Questions, comments, observations, critiques. We're open for everything. This is your chance. Do we have a mic? Oh, here, great, thank you.
You all come from various backgrounds, and some of them very tragic and difficult, but you all share this immigrant experience in one way or another. You have a really powerful chance right now to speak heart to heart to a lot of native-born Americans, and especially a lot of young people. If you could just share one word of wisdom or give some advice to a group of people, especially a group of young people who maybe not have had your vast experience, what would that be?
That's an interesting question. Who would like to take that?
Tough question, one word or one sentence. I would suggest, love the people, but firmly deal with the behavior. Separate person and the behavior.
Maybe one other person who would like to respond to that question. Laurel?
I think either young or whatever age would be, it's just a matter of respect. I understand that sometimes when you have fear for the unknown, that could be kind of like a reason to fight first. But just take a second before you make judgments. Basically just take a deep breath, because the individual goes way beyond what you see and what you hear. So it's a matter of respecting, as if you're looking at yourself in the mirror. The image might not be exactly the same, but we're made out of the same material. So one day that same person would be in a different country where perhaps as if you're on stage, it's just flipping the situation. So I guess it's just a matter of reacting the way you would like to be treated anywhere. But for young people especially, I guess it's just open the horizons and basically respect and love.
Great, thank you. Yes, another question.
Hello? Oh, okay, there we go. I have a question. I'm kind of wondering about if you feel like you've been able to keep your cultural identity that you've taken from where you've come from, or have you wanted, or teaching your children and things like, for those of you who have children, teaching your children your heritage and where they come from, do you feel that that's like important?
Okay, thank you. for me, I find it very, very hard to hold on to my culture, especially being here in West Michigan, where there are very few Jamaicans, and there are times when I crave my culture, and so my colleagues always tease me that I'm, as the absentee professor, I'm always leaving because I need to go home to reconnect. I miss reggae music, I miss not getting Jamaican food, I miss not getting the kinds of things that I like to get. And then there's also the notion of, someone mentioned earlier, being here in this country, you do assimilate to some extent. You can't help but assimilate. And there are times when I resist that because I don't want to lose my culture. And so for me, I have an internal war that's going on, that's constantly going on. And then part of this whole notion of cultural identity too is that when you don't fit into the boxes or a box that some people here put you in, or if you don't fit into that particular stereotype, so people assume, some people assume that all Mexicans wear sombreros and ponchos, or that all Jamaicans must have dreadlocks and wear Rasta colors and smoke pot and marijuana and things like that. And in fact, I've had students who have actually said things like that to me. And so it is a struggle, again, and it's something that I'm still dealing with. I don't know, anyone else wants to address a question? Yeah, Sandra?
Yes, the cultural part is very important, and I feel that I still have my cultural identity, and hopefully I will not lose it, never. It's very difficult also to keep connected to your country because you are far away. I try to go every 2 years and try to read the newspaper every day. But anyway, even if I go to Colombia, there is always a new TV soap opera, new actress that I don't know. So you still miss many things, but hopefully I like to keep it, and I want to keep it. And also I want to teach my children to speak Spanish, and of course I want to have some traditions that we have during Christmas time or during other times of the year. So I will try to keep it. I know it's difficult because they are gonna be Americans, but I want that they go back with me to see where I am from, how is my country, and what I value about it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
You'd like to go ahead?
Please. I believe as immigrants, when we come here, or when you go, anywhere you go to, you have the right to keep your identity, okay? Because that is who you are. We have a saying in Gambia, in Africa, that the piece of log dropped in the riverbed, however long it stays there, will never be a crocodile. Okay? It will be there, it will grow moss, it will grow shells, but it will never be a crocodile. It will always be a piece of log. So wherever you are, you therefore have to keep your identity. And that's who I've been. I have always loved my culture and myself. Wherever I had been going, I seldom ever wear Western clothes. I wear it during the winter time because I have no option, because I've got to put on pants to save my legs. But even at home, I wear my native garb. And in my house, we speak our local language. The only time we speak English is when we have friends or guests that come to see us. Other than that, we speak our language, we eat our foods, we eat American foods, we like it. And we have also taken some of the American culture, the Thanksgiving, all these other things, Mother's Days and all sorts of things. We have taken those things, but we haven't forgotten our own. We mix them. We do our own and we join it because it's a beautiful culture. I mean, that is why America is so special. You know, you have these multiple cultures coming together, you know, And it's so beautiful to see them, to enjoy them, you know. So I believe we can be Americans, we can assimilate, you know, because it's the richness of a diverse cultures. But what makes it so beautiful is the retention. Because if we all assimilated and forgot who we were and where we came from, okay, it wouldn't be that interesting. It wouldn't be that, it would be sad. So that's why it's really good to retain. But whilst we live here, I mean, we're definitely rubbing off. We rub off with each other's culture, take from each, the clothes, the food, you know, what you call, the practices, you know, and teaching these kids the differences, the cultures, the family values, morals, and interculture. It's so beautiful. We learn from each other. So I think to retain it is good.
Thank you. Thank you. Question, yes.
You know what? We're going to have to move along now, Steve.
Oh, I thought we had 5 more minutes. Okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I want to thank this panel very much. Let's give them a hand. We're going to be moving on to lunch here pretty soon, but before we do, I want to point out something. You know, if you heard the opening comments, a word about Oscar Hanlon, who is one of the great American students scholars of immigration. And the reason his book, The Uprooted, was praised so much was that it was said to describe the heart and soul of immigrants. And I think what we did today on this panel was provide the heart and the soul, the face, the true face of immigration. That's why I'm very, very moved by your stories, and I thank you for sharing them today, and thank you, Steve, for moderating.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Well, we want to move along now. There's going to be, our next part of our program is going to happen at 11:30. We're going to move this whole venue now over to the Kirkhof Center. And the program actually has an error in it. It's not 215. It's not room 215. It's the room next to Père Marquette room. Now, it is a lunch. Those of you who RSVP'd for lunch, go to the registration table. If you did not RSVP for lunch, there's still a place for you to sit. You can still go on in and enjoy our next speaker, who will be talking to us about all the different immigrant groups here in Michigan. So we hope that you will continue with us through the day. I also want to point out that this is, remember, Constitution Day celebration that we're hosting here, and there are copies of the United States Constitution on the table out here. So please pick up a copy of the Constitution on your way out. And finally, I want to point out to you this afternoon, do not leave this area of campus, because we're going to come back here at 1 o'clock and have the debate. We'll have a 3-way debate going at 1 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. Thank you very much.